My name is Zarah Sultana. I'm a Labour Member of Parliament and I am involved with the Enough is Enough campaign.
And why have you joined the Enough is Enough campaign?
Because it is a campaign that is bringing together the labour movement, social movements, members of Parliament to demand action, which we're not getting from our political class.
Today is a really strange day because inflation has hit its highest level since 1982. What does that look like for your constituents?
Absolutely terrifying. I get emails, phone calls when I talk to people at surgeries and in the street. People are really scared and they've already faced a hike in their bills. They're seeing mortgage repayments go up, fuel payments, food prices, and they're really worried about what's to come. And millions more people are facing a similar situation. Reports suggest that by winter, 35 million people could be in fuel poverty. And that is a lot of people making very difficult decisions around heating and eating. And to me, that is because of political choices made in Westminster, where this situation does not need to have happened if different decisions were made. We have enough wealth in this country. The problem is that it is completely concentrated in the hands of a few. And what Enough is demanding is a real pay rise. It's to say that as the sixth largest economy in the world, we can afford to pay people wages that aren't poverty wages. We can slash energy bills. We've seen it in France where their energy bills have increased by 4%, and Macron, who's not a radical politician by any stretch of the imagination, has nationalised the energy company, the main energy company there. We're saying that actually we can have a country where food poverty doesn't exist, no more food banks. I don't think anything is radical. In fact, these are very popular policies across the country. And when it comes to concepts and policies like nationalisation, again, a bit controversial within the political discourse, but not controversial amongst the public at all. And those are the demands that this campaign is pushing for. And it's saying, actually, we can afford this if we just tax the richest, the broadest shoulders in society and not make the working class pay for another crisis that isn't of their own making.
In terms of food in supermarkets, items like bread, milk, cheese, other things that have really gone up the sharpest and the quickest. What are you seeing like in food banks in your constituency? Like what sort of items are people asking for?
People aren't really asking for specific items. In Coventry Food Bank, demand has just shot up and people aren't able to donate as much as they have in the past. And one thing that I've been able to do with a really successful fundraiser is to be able to support the efforts there, to be able to donate £10,000 at a time of real need for the food bank. And this is something that's happening across the country where demand is growing and people who never thought that they would need a food bank are accessing food banks. People who should be on wages that are able to support their family, nurses, firefighters, teachers, as well as people in call centres, cleaners. This is affecting a huge group of people and it shouldn't be left to donations and food banks to help people. This is something that government should be addressing. It shouldn't fall to the generosity or donations of ordinary people.
I think after a decade of the Tories, we're used to talking about public sector workers and how underpaid they are and how they can't afford to live. But actually this crisis looks like it's going to affect people who are on 30, 40k. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes. What we see in the media and by politicians is trying to divide the working class by putting and pitting tube drivers against office workers, against firefighters, against nurses to say, actually, if a certain sector or an industry is striking, that is something that it goes against your interests. Whereas we've seen with the RMT, when they were striking, and they will continue to strike this week and throughout the summer, is that ordinary people understand that tube drivers are fighting for terms and conditions that everyone will benefit from, and actually it is a fight that is collective and that everyone deserves to have good pay, good terms and conditions. The concept of fire and rehire should be illegal, and it's not even though the Tories said that they would do that. So I think what we're seeing is loads of people across the country realising that actually they don't have to put up with this, and after 12 years they're sick of being told by politicians that actually they're the ones that need to make the sacrifices and they're the ones that have to make these difficult decisions, when that is not the case. And that's why we're seeing so much interest in the Enough is Enough campaign. Within 3 days, 300,000 people signed up. I've never seen anything like this, and it's incredibly exciting, but it tells us that actually, we've got a huge fight in our hands, and actually we can do it.
When do you think the pinch point will be? I think at the moment people are still living off of credit or they've got a bit of savings. Like, at what point do you think that even, like, you know, middle class, I hate using that term, but middle class people will turn and go, we can't live like this anymore?
I think it's already happening. People are already working out that when the October hike happens, the money in their bank from their income isn't increasing. In fact, wages have stagnated. Everything else has been increasing month on month. And already the maths isn't adding up. They're already worried. And I think this is the right time for government to make really serious intervention, not, you know, tinkering around the edges. This is a time to say, actually, we're going to go back to the pre-April price cap. And of course, I would love to see a Tory government commit to nationalisation. They're not going to do it. You know, out of the blue, it requires serious grassroots effort and actually political support from the Labour Party as well. And that's what this movement is about. It's about bringing everyone together. It doesn't matter whether, you know, you're a party member or you're not interested in party politics. It's saying, actually, we need to force this issue right to the top of the agenda where we can't be ignored.
The Tories had their biggest majority in quite a long time. They had plenty of MPs in there. They could have pushed through any legislation that they wanted. Why do you think that they didn't foresee this or didn't put in any preparation to the crisis we're about to see?
I think they foresaw this. If we see some of the anti-civil liberties legislation that they've pushed through, making it harder for people to organise, demonstrate, it's all because they saw what was coming, real social discontent with the economic and social situation in this country. So they've already been able to kind of lay the ground to make it very difficult for us to mobilise on the levels that we need to. And of course, we just need to carry on organising rallies, community groups, supporting people on picket lines. We know that trade unions are right at the forefront of this fight, where they are fighting for their members. And of course, we're going to see more and more unions. The UCU's balloting, CWU's on strike, the FBU is balloting, and we're going to see a lot more industrial action over the summer. And it's about showing solidarity and everyone coming together and working together, because this is for the collective good.
Do you think they put in that legislation because they foresaw this coming?
It's deeply ideological. They are very much against working people coming together, fighting against what they see as political corruption, decision making that goes against their interest, and just, you know, we've had a law-breaking, lying, arrogant prime minister who actually didn't step down because he had a moral awakening. It was because his backbenchers actually got sick of him, and for their own careerist reasons and to protect their own seats, got rid of him. It wasn't because he broke the law, it was just because they saw the light in terms of their own careers. So you can kind of get away with anything at this moment in politics, and I think people are fed up. And the legislation from the anti-civil liberties legislation, but also the biggest cut to the welfare state since its history, when the £20 uplift to universal credit was taken away, is telling people that decisions are being made against them. But then we're seeing bankers' bonuses at an all-time high, the highest since the financial crisis. We're seeing record wealth for the top 1% in this country. We have a record number of billionaires. So there is a crisis for some people, and it's not for it's our class. Whereas those who are the wealthiest in our country have made a real killing over the COVID pandemic, but also the past 12 years, where there's been a huge shift of wealth from working people to the hands of the 1%. We've had 40 years of privatisation since Thatcher. In that time, we have seen industries that were previously owned by the public, water, mail, rail, make so much profit for shareholders. And actually, the quality of service in many of these industries has fallen, but profits have gone through the roof. We can have a completely different situation, and we've seen it in France, we've seen it in other parts of the world, where if we bring these utilities that we know that we can't live without water, we can't live without getting our post, we can't live without energy. Well, if they are so essential, then they should be not vulnerable or at the whims of the market. They should be completely in control of the public, and any money that they generate that's profit should be reinvested, and people should see their bills slashed. And actually all of these renationalisation policies is exactly what we need to address the climate emergency. If we want to be able to decarbonize, and if we want to be able to have the carbon targets that we need to reduce the amount of carbon emissions that we've got in this country, nationalisation has to be top of the agenda, because it allows us to move at the scale and speed that we need. So it's exactly what we need. It's wildly popular amongst the public, and that's why it should not be anything remotely controversial, especially within the Labour Party.